They call it logistics. I call it babysitting 3,000 tons of heavy steel, diesel fuel, rubber tires, and human lives rolling at 70 miles per hour across the highways of the United States. My name is Gary Thompson. I am 56 years old. For 24 years, I have been the invisible spine keeping Atlas Freight Systems standing upright. You have never heard my name, but if you bought a tractor in the Midwest, fresh avocados in February, or emergency generators after a Category 4 hurricane, I am the exact reason those items showed up on time. As the senior contract renewal specialist, my job is to know exactly where every legal document is signed and where every body in this industry is buried. I do not have a corner office with a glass desk and a panoramic view of the city skyline. My workspace is a cluttered cubicle deep inside the operational bowels of our warehouse headquarters in Toledo, Ohio. It smells like stale coffee and hot printer toner, and I prefer it that way. The quiet down here allows me to monitor the hum of the entire logistics machine. I can predict a port strike in Seattle 3 days before the union bosses even print their picket signs. I know which freight brokers are padding their fuel surcharges and which independent owners will drive through a midnight blizzard in the Rocky Mountains because they owe me a personal favor from 2005. Let us make one thing clear before I explain how I brought a $3 billion logistics empire to a complete standstill. I am not a hero. I did not start this with a grand plan to destroy anyone. I just wanted to do my job, collect my salary, and look after the drivers who keep this country moving. The trouble began with a retirement party. Charles Vance, the founder of Atlas Freight Systems, decided at age 75 to retire to a private estate in Italy. Charles was a tough, foul-mouthed old bastard who started with one truck and built a massive fleet. We had a mutual respect. I kept his trucks full, and he kept my paycheck cleared. But then he handed the reins of the empire to his 32-year-old son, Travis Vance. Travis had a freshly minted MBA from an Ivy League school that Charles had paid a new library wing to get him into. Travis walked into the corporate office wearing a $5,000 suit, smelling of sandalwood cologne and unearned authority. He had never touched a steering wheel or strapped down a flatbed load, but suddenly he was the commander of our ship. Within his first 2 weeks, Travis installed a cold brew coffee tap in the break room, replaced our ergonomic chairs with beanbags, and fired our veteran janitorial service to outsource for efficiency. The office toilets backed up within 48 hours. By his 3rd month, Travis was parading a 26-year-old woman named Amber around the office. He gave her the title of Director of Organizational Vibes, placing her on a $120,000 annual salary. I kept my mouth shut. I am a professional. I survived the 2008 recession, a global pandemic, and a massive cyber attack that required me to route 500 trucks using a paper road atlas and a payphone. I assumed I could survive Travis. But the friction built up slowly, like sand grinding away inside a gearbox. Travis did not like me. I was analog. I was a middle-aged man who preferred a phone call to a Slack message. To Travis, I was an expensive relic. To me, Travis was a shiny hood ornament on a semi-truck. Looked nice, but completely useless when you hit a deer on the highway. The first real clash happened on a busy Tuesday. I was on a conference call with Big Jim, the representative for the East Coast Stevedores Union. We had been negotiating for 4 hours, trying to massage a 2.5% rate hike into a 5 years contract that would keep our shipping lanes open from Boston to Miami. Travis strolled past my desk, with Amber walking a step behind him. "Gary," Travis said, not even stopping, "we need to talk about your desk. The clutter is bad optics for potential investors." My desk was covered in active bills of lading, customs manifests, and legal pads covered in my notes. It was the nervous system of the company. "I am negotiating the East Coast port renewal, Travis," I said, pressing the mute button on my phone. "If I clear this desk right now, we lose our priority docking slots in Baltimore and Savannah." Travis smiled, that condescending smile he reserved for older employees. "We have digital management software for that now, Gary. Get it onto the cloud and clear the paper. It is 2026. He strolled away. Amber giggled. Big Jim was still waiting on the line. "Everything good, Gary?" Jim asked. "Just a minor speed bump, Jim," I replied. "Let us lock in this overtime clause." I finalized the contract. It saved Atlas Freight Systems $40 million in port delays over the next quarter. I did not receive a thank you note. Instead, I received an automated email from HR reminding me of the clean desk policy. The final straw was not a business dispute. It was personal disrespect. In mid-October, the peak shipping season was hitting us hard. Halloween candy, retail goods, and Thanksgiving turkeys were all moving at the same time. I was working 14 hours days, surviving on ibuprofen and pure stubbornness. Then a company-wide email landed on Wednesday morning. Subject: mandatory attendance, celebrating visionary leadership. It was an invitation to Travis's 33rd birthday party. It was scheduled for Saturday night at the Vance family estate. The email explicitly stated that attendance was mandatory for all senior management. Saturday night was the peak of our import schedule. It was the exact night I had to oversee the customs clearance for a $15 million shipment of temperature-sensitive pediatric vaccines coming through the port of Philadelphia. If the temperature monitors dropped below 2 degrees Celsius due to a customs delay, the cargo would spoil, and the insurance claim alone would ruin our regional carrier license. I hit reply to the email. Travis, happy early birthday. I cannot attend. I have to monitor the pharmaceutical clearance in Philadelphia on Saturday night. It requires active oversight due to the temperature guidelines. Have a great celebration. Gary. I thought that was the end of it. It was professional, reasonable, and prioritized the business. I was dead wrong. On Friday morning, I walked into the office and felt a sudden drop in the air pressure. People looked away when I walked by. I sat down at my desk, booted up my computer, and typed my password. Access denied. I typed it again. Access denied. The logistics business is not about trucks and trailers. It is about relationships. I spent 24 years building those relationships. I knew the wives of our drivers, their children's names, and their medical issues. I knew when a driver needed to get home for a graduation or a surgery, and I made sure it happened. Travis did not care about any of that. To him, the drivers were just cell values on a spreadsheet, assets to be optimized for quarterly earnings reports. He did not understand that when you treat people like machines, they will eventually stop working for you. When I sat at my desk on that fateful Friday morning, staring at the flashing red text that said my credentials had been deactivated, I realized that Travis had not just locked me out of my computer. He had locked himself out of the entire network. He had no idea that the passwords, the codes, and the keys were not stored in a digital database. They were stored in the memory of the vendors, the union leaders, and the port directors who had worked with me for 20 years. They were built on trust, and trust is not something you can download from a cloud server. Before I could call the help desk, I heard the click of heels and the squeak of leather loafers on the carpet. Travis was walking toward my cubicle. He was flanked by Amber, who was holding a clipboard, and 2 building security guards who looked deeply embarrassed to be there. "Is there a system outage?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "We are making some changes, Gary," Travis said. He straightened his red silk tie. "We are transitioning to a more agile leadership structure. Your inability to align with our team culture has become a bottleneck." "Team culture?" I asked. "You refuse to support the CEO's milestone celebration," Amber chimed in, pointing her pen at me. "We need team members who vibrate on our frequency." I looked at Amber, I looked at Travis, then I looked at the security guards. "Travis," I said, my voice quiet, "I manage the contracts for 3,200 independent carriers. I am the authorized legal signatory for the Port of New York and New Jersey, the Teamsters Local 808, and the Great Lakes Customs Coalition. If I walk out that door, those relationships do not just upload to your cloud. Everyone is replaceable, Gary," Travis sneered. "That is Business 101. Hand over your corporate badge. Security will escort you to the exit." I did not raise my voice. I did not make a scene. I stood up, picked up my keys, and took the small framed photo of my dog from my desk. I reached into my pocket, unclipped my plastic badge, and dropped it into Travis's open hand. "Tell your father," I said. "Good luck," I said. "My father is in Italy," Travis laughed. "He does not care about the help." "He will," I replied. I walked out of the building. The morning air was damp and cold, but I felt incredibly light. I climbed into my 2016 Ford Explorer. I sat in the driver's seat and looked at my watch. It was 9:15 a.m. Most people who get fired after 24 years of loyal service would panic about their mortgage or their health insurance. But I was already doing the logistics of a counterstrike. Except this time, I was the cargo, and I was going to redirect the destination. I pulled out my personal cell phone. I had always kept a strict division between my personal life and corporate assets. I did not use a company phone. I opened my personal email account, the address that every single terminal manager, union president, and shipping client had used for emergencies over the last 2 decades. I drafted a simple, factual email, subject, formal notice of resignation and termination of authority. To whom it may concern, please be advised that as of 9:15 a.m. today, I, Gary Thompson, am no longer employed by Atlas Freight Systems. Consequently, I am no longer the authorized signatory or designated point of contact for any active service-level agreements, rate schedules, or compliance certifications. Pursuant to Clause 7B of our Master Service Agreement, Key Personnel Continuity, please be advised that my departure may trigger an immediate suspension of outstanding credit terms and cargo clearance authorities pending the formal appointment and vetting of a legally qualified successor. Please direct all urgent operational inquiries to Travis Vance, CEO. Best regards, Gary Thompson. Clause 7B was a specific legal safety valve I had inserted into our major contracts 15 years ago when Atlas Freight Systems was struggling with its credit rating. The major ports and trucking cartels were nervous about getting paid. To secure their trust, Charles Vance had allowed me to write a clause, stating that if I ever left the company, the contract would immediately freeze until the vendor could review the financial stability of the new management. They trusted me, not the corporate name. Travis had no idea Clause 7B existed. He had never read a contract in his life. I spent 30 minutes going down my contact list, sending the email to every major carrier, broker, and terminal director. Allied Freight Alliance, sent. Port of Philadelphia Terminal Manager, sent. Canadian Border Logistics Group, sent. By 10 a.m., my phone began to vibrate. It was Big Jim from the union. "Gary, what is this email?" Jim growled. "I just got a bounce back from your Atlas corporate account." "I am out, Jim," I said. "Travis fired me this morning. He said I did not fit the culture." "The culture?" Jim barked. "Does that idiot realize we have 150 trucks waiting to unload at the Port of Elizabeth? The rate agreement we signed on Tuesday is only valid if you are the active manager of compliance. If you are gone, my drivers do not have a contract. That is what Clause 7B is for, Jim," I said. "Protect your drivers." "You got it, Gary," Jim said. "I am telling my guys to park their rigs. We are not rolling without a valid agreement." The line went dead. The first domino had fallen. I shifted the Ford Explorer into drive and pulled out of the parking lot. I drove past the main entrance of the terminal, seeing several Atlas trucks idling in the staging lane. The drivers looked confused, standing near their cabs and talking on their radios. They were waiting for their dispatch sheets and clearance documents, unaware today that the person who signed those documents had just been escorted out of the building by security guards. As I parked my car, I felt a deep sense of relief. For 24 years, I had carried the burden of keeping this company running, working nights, weekends, and holidays to ensure that the cargo arrived on schedule. I had sacrificed my own personal life to build Charles Vance's empire, and this was how his son had repaid me. But I was not going to play the victim. I was going to let the rules of the industry do the work for me. The contracts were clear, and Clause 7B was a binding legal requirement. The moment my name was removed from the active registry of compliance officers, the credit agreements expired. The ports and union terminals were legally required to halt operations to protect their own liabilities. Travis had thought he was firing a single employee. He did not realize he was pulling the plug on the entire system. I drove to the station diner, a small truck stop eatery 3 miles away from the Atlas headquarters. It was a place with vinyl booths patched with tape and coffee that could strip paint. It was the perfect spot. I opened my laptop and connected to the diner's Wi-Fi. I logged onto a public commercial vessel and fleet tracking database. I started watching the digital map of the United States. Within an hour, small red dots began to appear. A red dot meant a tractor trailer had been stationary for more than 30 minutes. A cluster of red dots was forming outside of our main distribution center in Chicago. The gate codes at the Chicago facility were changed every Monday morning by our security contractor, and the system required a manual two-factor authorization code sent directly to my personal mobile device to push the new codes to the driver's handheld units. I had not authorized the transfer before I walked out. At 11:15 a.m., my phone rang. It was an unrecognized New York number. "Mr. Thompson, this is Harold Banks, General Counsel for Atlantic Heavy Transport," a man said. "We have 45 oversized flatbeds sitting on the shoulder of Interstate 80 in Pennsylvania. Your office is not answering the phone. Are we under a stop work order?" "I am no longer with Atlas, Mr. Banks," I replied. "Please review Clause 7B of our carrier agreement. I cannot authorize any transport permits or release escrow payments." "Understood," Banks said. "We are parking the fleet. We cannot risk operating without active indemnity coverage." By noon, the tracking map was covered in red. Over 300 trucks were parked. The logistics system was not breaking. It was freezing. At 12:45 p.m., my phone rang again. This time the screen read Travis Vance. I let it ring. He called back immediately. I let it ring again. On the third attempt, I answered. "Gary," Travis screamed. He sounded out of breath. "What the hell did you do to the server? We cannot log into the carrier portal." "I did not touch the server, Travis," I said calmly. "The IT department says the administrator account is locked," Travis yelled. "They need the two-factor authentication code. It was sent to your phone. Give it to me right now." "I am a private citizen, Travis," I said. "My employment was terminated effective immediately at 9:15 a.m. "Just text me the code, Gary," Travis ordered. "I am the CEO. I command you to give it to me." "I cannot do that, Travis," I replied. Under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, specifically 18 U.S.C. Section 1030, accessing a protected computer system without authorization or exceeding authorized access is a federal offense. Since you revoked my employment and my security clearance, if I access that system or transmit authentication codes to bypass security protocols, I am committing a federal crime. I will not violate federal law for a company I do not work for. "I will sue you for corporate sabotage," Travis hissed. "You can sue me for whatever you want, Travis," I said. "But you might want to call the IT vendor's emergency response team first. Their corporate rate is $5,000 an hour, and they might be able to rebuild your security database in 48 hours. "Gary, wait," Travis pleaded. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure panic. "We have 400 tons of frozen seafood sitting in refrigerated trucks at the port of Miami. If the refrigeration units lose power, the cargo will rot. The shippers will sue us for millions." "That is a serious problem, Travis," I said. "Did you remember to renew the National Fuel Card account?" "The billing cycle ended yesterday. I usually manually override the system block because the credit line requires a corporate guarantor signature." I heard a loud crash on the other end of the line, like a fist hitting a desk. "Fix it, Gary," Travis said. "Just come back, fix this, and we will forget this happened." "I cannot do that, Travis. I am busy cleaning my house. Feng Shui is very important for my personal vibe." I hung up. I felt a slight chill, but I was not going to let the drivers or the cargo suffer because of Travis's ego. I looked up the phone number for Miami Mike, the terminal manager at the Miami cold storage facility. "Mike, it is Gary," I texted. "I am no longer with Atlas. The kid is running the company into a wall. The fuel cards are going to decline. Do not let the drivers sit on the street. Tell them to hook up to the shore power lines in your yard. Bill it to our emergency backup account. It is pre-funded." "Roger that, Gary," Mike texted back. "We heard the rumor. We will take care of the drivers. We are not moving any Atlas cargo until you tell us to." I shut my laptop. I had stabilized the situation for the drivers. Now it was time to build the lifeboat. The station diner was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional sound of a truck passing on the highway. I sat in a corner booth, drinking the hot, bitter coffee and monitoring the screen of my laptop. The map of the United States was rapidly filling with red markers. Every red dot represented a frozen shipment, a delayed truck, or a closed terminal gate. The logistics network was freezing from coast to coast. I knew exactly what was happening at the headquarters. Travis and his managers would be running around the office, screaming at the IT staff, calling the vendors, and trying to bypass the security blocks. They would be realizing that they could not access the customer portal, the dispatch system, or the custom clearance databases without my active authorization. They would be realizing that they did not have the passwords or the authorization codes, and that the only person who could release those codes was a man they had just fired for culture fit. Travis's threats of a lawsuit were empty. I had not deleted a single file or changed a single password. I had simply walked out the door with my own security clearance, exactly as Travis had ordered. The system was performing exactly as it was designed to under the federal guidelines. It was protecting the data from unauthorized users. I drove downtown to the Obsidian restaurant, an upscale steakhouse where the water was imported and the tables were separated by mahogany partitions. Harvey Thorne, the regional vice president of Apex Logistics Corporation, was waiting for me at a corner table. Apex was Atlas's largest competitor. Harvey had been trying to recruit me for 10 years, offering me a corner office and a significant raise. I had always refused out of loyalty to old Charles. But loyalty is a two-way street, and Travis had turned it into a dead end. "Gary," Harvey said, standing up to shake my hand. "You look remarkably relaxed for a man who was fired this morning." "News travels fast in logistics," I said, sitting down. "My dispatchers are going crazy," Harvey smiled. "The spot market is exploding. Atlas is dropping loads all over the country. Rates have spiked 30% in the last 2 hours." "What happened?" "Travis wanted a more agile culture," I said, ordering a black coffee. "He forgot that the culture is built on trust and contracts." So Harvey leaned in. "Are you ready to talk?" "I am not looking for a standard job, Harvey," I said. "I want autonomy. I want to build a specialized strategic accounts division at Apex. I will bring my entire network of carrier relations, terminal managers, and union leaders. But I run the division. No middle management interference. If I tell a driver we are paying a premium to get him home for the holidays, we pay it." Harvey tapped his fingers on the table. "You are asking for a lot of authority, Gary. I am offering you a $3 billion book of business," I replied. "Atlas is bleeding out. By tomorrow morning, their largest clients will be looking for a rescue ship. I am the captain of that ship." Harvey smiled. "Let us get the legal department to draft the contract." While we were waiting for our lunch, my phone buzzed with an emergency alert from the Department of Transportation. My stomach dropped as I read the text. Incident report: Atlas Freight Systems Vehicle 4004 jackknifed on Interstate 80 near Toledo, Ohio. Hazardous material spill reported. Industrial solvent leaking onto roadway. Cleanup crews dispatched. Emergency closures in effect. I immediately called Big Jim. "Jim, tell me that was not one of your guys on Interstate 80, I said. "No." "Gary," Jim said, his voice shaking with anger. "Travis hired a non-union scab driver off a digital load board to move that chemical shipment because we refused to haul it without a signed contract. The driver did not have a hazardous materials endorsement. He took a wet curve at 65 miles per hour, jackknifed, and spilled 5,000 gallons of toxic solvent into a creek. The Environmental Protection Agency is swarming the site. This is a disaster," I said. "It is a death blow, Gary," Jim said. "The Department of Transportation is issuing an emergency order to ground the entire Atlas fleet for an immediate safety audit." I looked across the table at Harvey. "Atlas just destroyed itself," I said. "A hazardous material spill with an uncertified driver. The federal regulators are shutting them down." Harvey stared at me. "Travis is done." I stood up, grabbing my bag. "I have to go," I said. "I need to meet Charles. His private plane lands in 45 minutes. I drove to the private airfield. The rain had stopped, and the sky was deep, dark purple. I parked my Explorer near the terminal fence. A white Gulfstream jet descended from the clouds and touched down on the runway. Charles Vance was back. He walked down the stairs of the plane, talking heatedly into his phone. Even from a distance, I could see the fury in his posture. He looked around for his limousine, but the driver was not there. I rolled down my window. "Charles," I called out. He stormed over, his trench coat flying behind him. "You," he roared, pointing his finger. "You betrayed us. You locked my son out of the database." "Get into the car, Charles," I said. "Your driver is not coming. The dispatch office is empty, and nobody notified the car service. I am your only ride." He glared at me, then climbed into the passenger seat. "Drive," he snarled, "and explain why my company is collapsing." I drove to the private airport, my mind racing. The news of the chemical spill on Interstate 80 was spreading rapidly across the industry blogs. A major hazardous material incident with an uncertified scab driver was the ultimate violation of federal shipping regulations. The Department of Transportation's grounding order would halt every single Atlas truck on the road, forcing them to park at the nearest way station or terminal until a full safety audit could be completed. The financial penalties would be astronomical, easily exceeding the company's liquid reserves. As I pulled up to the terminal gate, I saw the Gulfstream jet taxiing toward the corporate hangar. Charles Vance had spent 40 years building Atlas Freight Systems from a single truck into a national logistics powerhouse. He had survived the deregulation of the shipping industry, the rise of digital competition, and multiple economic downturns. But his legacy was being dismantled in a single afternoon by his own son. I was not happy about the destruction of the company, but I knew it was the only way to save the people who had built it. The drivers, the dispatchers, and the support staff did not deserve to be dragged down by Travis's arrogance. They needed a secure home, and Apex Logistics was the only company with the scale and resources to absorb them. Charles sat in silence as I drove toward the Atlas headquarters. The highway was wet, reflecting the red and blue emergency lights in the distance. "Travis told me you hacked the servers," Charles said, his voice trembling slightly. "I did not hack anything, Charles," I said. "I was terminated at 9:15 a.m. My security credentials were revoked. If I had accessed the database, I would have violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act." Travis did not understand that the entire system was built on active compliance. When he removed me, he triggered the safety overrides. "And the accident?" Charles asked. "Travis hired an uncertified driver off an app to move a hazardous chemical load because the union drivers refused to operate without a valid contract," I said. "The truck jackknifed in Toledo. There is a massive solvent spill. The Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Transportation are grounding your entire fleet." Charles leaned back in his seat, looking suddenly very old. He closed his eyes. "There is more," I said. "Harold Banks, the corporate counsel, has been auditing the accounts. Travis has been embezzling company funds. He set up shell companies under Amber's name to pay for personal luxuries. He took over $3 million, and some of that money was pulled directly from the employee pension fund." Charles did not speak. A single tear ran down his weathered cheek. When we arrived at the headquarters, the building was surrounded by government vehicles and local news vans. I parked near the loading dock where I had started my career 24 years ago. "What do we do, Gary?" Charles asked. "Can we save it?" "No," I said. "Atlas Freight Systems is dead, but we can save the people." "How?" "I have signed a contract with Apex Logistics," I said. "We are going to buy Atlas Freight Systems for $1. Apex will assume all operational assets, your remaining customer contracts, and most importantly, we will assume the full liability of the employee pension fund. We will guarantee that the drivers' retirements are protected. But you have to sell the company today, and Travis has to face the legal consequences." Charles nodded slowly. "Do it," he said. I called Harvey Thorne at Apex and told him to prepare the acquisition documents. Within an hour, the board of Atlas Freight Systems approved the sale. As we sat in the boardroom, the door opened, and 2 federal agents entered. They walked past us to Travis's office. A few minutes later, they led Travis out in handcuffs. He was screaming about his father and his status, but nobody was listening. Amber was already gone, having deleted her social media accounts and packed her bags. Charles signed the final papers, transferring the remnants of Atlas to Apex Logistics. He shook my hand one last time, then walked out to a waiting taxi heading back to the airport. 3 weeks later, I stood in my new office on the 28th floor of the Apex corporate tower. The view was beautiful, showing the cargo ships moving slowly along the river. My desk was still covered in paper, but nobody complained about the optics. Brenda, our payroll manager, who had transitioned to Apex with me, walked in. "Gary, the transition of the Atlas pension fund is complete," she said. "Every driver's retirement account is secure. The checks are going out on schedule." "Thanks, Brenda," I said. "How are the drivers doing?" "They are calling you the mama bear," she smiled. "They are refusing to take routes for any other coordinator." I smiled. I looked out the window at the distant highway. Travis had thought that power came from a title and a fancy suit. But in the real world of logistics, Power comes from the people who move the cargo and the trust you build with them. I took a sip of my coffee. It was fresh, and it tasted like a new beginning. I picked up my phone to call Big Jim. We had a new 5 years contract to write. The transition was not easy. It required days of legal negotiations, financial audits, and logistical reorganization. I spent 18 hours a day in the Apex office, working with Harvey, Thorne, and Brenda to coordinate the transfer of the Atlas assets. We had to rewrite hundreds of carrier agreements, update the port registrations, and contact every single customer to assure them that their cargo would continue to move without delay. But the hard work paid off. The Apex Strategic Operations Division was established, and we managed to transfer over 90% of the active Atlas drivers and staff to our team. The drivers were relieved to know that their jobs and pension funds were secure, and they showed their gratitude by working extra shifts to clear the backlog of cargo. Charles Vance remained in Italy, living out his retirement in silence. He never spoke to Travis again. Travis was sentenced to 5 years in a federal facility for embezzlement and violation of federal transportation safety guidelines. Amber returned the luxury vehicles and the apartment that Travis had leased for her, disappearing from the corporate social circles. I looked at the framed photo of my dog on my new mahogany desk. The cubicle was gone, replaced by a spacious office with a view of the river, but the work remained the same. It was still about keeping the trucks moving, looking after the drivers, and honoring the agreements we signed. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the Port of Philadelphia. We had a new shipment of pediatric vaccines to clear, and this time the system was running perfectly.